And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek's Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we have a pile of new electric bike stories to talk about this week. We've got everything from new bikes from companies like Raleigh and Tern. We've got a priority Skyline review coming up. We've got some interesting legal stories again. Apparently, police stopped a quote 80 mile per hour e bike. So excited to learn a little more about what goes into an 80 mile an hour e bike. Really cool new high powered trike coming out, and Can-Am has a new electric not AT yeah, ATV, not UTV. So cool little like four-wheeler electric thing that we're going to check out as well. But where are we going to start this week, Seth?
All right. Major e-bike maker hits pause on U.S. imports after new tariffs.
Yeah, so this one really caught me off guard. This is Reese and Moller. They're a German e-bike company. A lot of people know them from their cargo e-bikes. They make like really good commuters too, but they're a very high-end company. These are not cheap bikes. Reese and Moller's regularly go for six, seven, eight, $9,000, like very, very high end. And even though I thought that we were kind of like figuring out the tariff situation. It's a little bit behind us, even though companies are dealing with it. One of the newest tariffs that I didn't expect to impact the e-bike industry has suddenly caused Reese and Muller to put a pause on their imports to the U.S., and that are the new steel tariffs that the Trump administration imposed. And these are 50% tariffs on most countries. I think the UK gets a 25% tariff, but it applies to the steel content in a lot of different HTS code, so like different import categories of products, and electric bicycles are included in that. So if you make your e-bikes in Germany, for example, like Riese and Moller, anything that's steel in there, the spokes, any like motor housings, hardware, like any part of the steel content can be added to the tariff, like the total tariffs on top of any other tariffs that are already uh, put on that category. So the problem is that for a lot of companies, they don't really know how that's going to impact them. Like, how do you gauge how much of the bike's value comes from its steel content, right? Like, do you weigh the spokes and say it's like, a couple ounces of steel, or is it the percentage value of a $7,000 bike? Like, it's very uncertain. And if you get that wrong, and Customs and Border Patrol is like, actually, we think that you miscalculated that by a few thousand, you could get hit with huge fees, like not just a few $1,000. And so Reese and Muller hit the pause button and said, listen, we're not bringing in any more e-bikes until we figure out what's going on with these tariffs. Like, it wasn't enough to already have all these other tariffs. Now we've got the steel tariffs on top of that add 50% more based on whatever someone arbitrarily decides is the value of steel in these things. So we don't know what their future plans are. It doesn't sound like they're calling this permanent. It seems like they're talking more about like a temporary pause until they can sort of figure out what their tariff liability is. But this is a we're stopping imports until further notice kind of situation. They sent out a message to all of their dealers saying, like, listen, stop selling the new bikes because we don't know when we're going to be able to get you more stock of new bikes. So this is pretty serious. Now, Reese and Muller, it's sort of, I don't know if it's fair to call it a boutique brand or not. I mean, it's a huge brand, but these are not high volume sellers, right? Because they're so expensive. So it's not like a Rad or Electrek or an Aventon saying we're pausing bikes. But it is a very interesting, perhaps canary in the coal mine situation, because these German e-bike companies, um, you know, they're going to be more aware of the rules. They're going to play it closer to the vest. They're going to make sure that they're dotting their T's, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, so that they don't get anything wrong here. And that might be an indication of what's to come if more companies realize, wait a second, maybe the Germans are onto something. We don't want to get hit with some huge fees if we're not calculating these tariffs correctly. So I don't know if this is going to lead to more issues. I don't think this was perhaps the goal of these tariffs. At least I hope it wasn't. I think that the goal is for people to buy U.S. steel or whatever. But obviously, Reese and Muller's not going to go buy steel in the U.S. and then turn it into spokes to put in their German-made e-bikes. So it's another case of something that probably wouldn't have been impacted by tariffs anyways in terms of where the production is going to occur, suddenly being a victim of these new tariffs. I don't know how this plays out because this is such a new situation that it's hard for me to say, does this impact other companies? Do they start hitting the pause button as well? I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, you just keep adding complexity to these boutique sellers' operations, and they're just going to give up. I mean, it's just such a hassle. I can't imagine not even knowing like if you're going to be able to get your merchandise into showrooms without sitting in customs. Like I'm sure that customs are not prepared for all these confusing new regulations. Like it has to be just kind of a nightmare for these companies who just want to like they want to put all their energy into innovating and trying to save money and lower costs and having a successful brand and saving some making some money. So all of this stuff has just got to be so annoying. I can't imagine what it's like right now. And maybe the loss. I mean, I don't know that anybody in the current administration is going to be too worried about Reese and Mueller not being in bike shops. But if this kind of spreads to like if Mercedes said, you know what, it's not worth it, like just too complicated, then perhaps our administration would kind of check themselves. Now, I don't think Mercedes is anywhere near that kind of situation, but it's just one of those things that's like quite frustrating because it's very much a distraction kind of play by the current administration, and it's just kind of messing up the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're absolutely right that this could lead to Reese and Moeller and potentially other brands just saying it's not worth it anymore. Yamaha already did that with their e-bikes several months ago, and they just said, listen, like the market's not right for us anymore in the U.S. So you can't buy a Yamaha e-bike, at least not new in the U.S. anymore. And so I would not be surprised at all if Reese and Moeller says like, look, we weren't even selling that many here to begin with. It's not worth the headache.
Right. Yeah, and you guys don't like slow, overpriced bikes. So I mean,
I think they
I think
have class 3, don't they?
Reese and Mueller are really good bikes. Like I had one. It's like strong. It's the 28 mile per hour one. It's 28 mile per hour. They have great Bosch mid drives. Um, love the bikes, but like compared to like what is popping up in our ads is like, oh, here's a $500 30 mile per hour e-bike. Make sure you charge it outside. That kind of thing.
It likes to breathe.
Yeah, it likes to breathe and smoke.
Oh man,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I think we should probably keep an eye on this stuff. It seems like it's going in the wrong direction, obviously. But
Yeah.
let's move on. Our next story is police stop and confiscate incredibly dangerous 80 mile per hour electric bicycle, and incredibly dangerous 80 mile per hour is in quotes.
Yeah. So speaking of charge it outside, so yeah, this actually happened, but this is a little bit satirizing these UK police who they advertised how they stopped and confiscated this as Seth said, quote, 80 mile an hour, incredibly dangerous e-bike. It appears to be a DIY conversion. It looks like a typical mountain bike. It's got a fairly large direct drive motor on the back, a triangle battery in a bag. Like, we used to see these all the time 5 or 6 years ago. What the police did is, so first of all, this is obviously illegal in the UK. It's 250 watts max, and this motor is like the size of a dinner plate. So you can already tell it's well over 250 watts. But when they stopped it and confiscated it, they took a picture of the speedometer while lifting the rear wheel and twisting the throttle. So you can see it's like 80, 83 miles an hour, but that's what we refer to as the no load speed. If you lifted your car up on jack stands and hit the gas, you'd be going 120, 130 miles an hour. But I don't think your mom's Buick can do 130 kind of thing. So it's unlikely that this bike is as fast as the UK police are describing it as. That's for one thing. The second thing is that this is a case where they were alerted to the bike because someone called it in as operating near cars, which I thought was a hilarious way to describe an issue with a bike sharing the road with cars. So that was the thing that arose suspicion with the police before they eventually stopped this rider, and then confiscated his bike. And it brings us back to this issue that we're seeing a lot right now, is that um, there are a lot of, whether they're DIY or retail e-bikes, but models that significantly exceed the legal limits. And we're not talking about bikes that, they claim to be class 3, but they go 30 or 31 instead of 28. We're talking about bikes that either they're basically a Suron or a Talaria, or of that category of, basically electric dirt bike, or they're these DIY custom builds, which, I know Seth and I, we've had a lot of experience with. They're fun, but you can easily make these things go, 35, 40, 50 miles an hour. It's not that difficult with a basic eBay conversion kit and, like, some department store mountain bike. So we're seeing a lot more of those out there, and they're causing problems in a lot of areas. Police are talking about both rider responsibility, that people need to be careful whatever bike they're riding around pedestrians, riding in bike lanes, especially around cars, but also about accountability for using these types of e-bikes on public streets where they're, like, egregiously illegal. When it comes to, like, oh, it's technically not a class 3 bike because it goes 28 but it has a throttle, like, yeah, I'm personally not too concerned with that, because you're still sticking to relatively legal speeds and power levels. At some point, that's probably going to become more of an issue, and there will be a crackdown on that. But we're not talking about crazy speeds. When you look at something like this, that despite the police calling it an 80-mile-per-hour e-bike, it's probably easily a 40 to 50-mile-per-hour e-bike, and that's something that, yeah, like, if you hit a pedestrian doing 35, 45 miles an hour, you can cause serious damage, or kill somebody easily. So this is well outside the realm of what I would consider like a gray area e-bike, even if it's not like a perfectly street legal e-bike. And these, in my opinion, are a problem, at least when they're ridden on, public streets, public bike lanes, that sort of thing. If you want to, take it to some private trail somewhere, that's awesome. Like, that's actually a great place for this kind of stuff, fire roads, whatever, but not public streets, that sort of thing. If you really want to go 50 miles an hour, just get like an electric Vespa, a seated scooter, get like a light electric motorcycle. I understand that, this guy's probably doing this so he doesn't have to pay for insurance and a license and that sort of thing, but there's proper ways to go 50 miles an hour on electric two-wheeler, and this one, I would say, is probably not the right way to do it. But I did have a little fun poking fun at the UK police on their sort of Keystone Cops handling of this 80 mile an hour incredibly dangerous, quote unquote, e-bike. Are you seeing these things more around, Seth, these kind of like crazy fast e-bikes?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of Surons. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just that um, those class of bikes are incredibly popular. Like, I got a Talaria Triple X. I had a lot of fun on it, and then I got three cake bikes, three cake caulks, and so I'm knee deep in electric motorcycle world. But the popularity for my freshman and high school kids age is nuts. Like, I'm sure you've seen the popular YouTuber Suronster.
Right.
He's riding Suron type bikes all around the streets of LA with his buddies, and they're doing wheelies and doing the tricks on the wheelies, like jumping up and down. And my kid and his friends just like they eat that stuff up. So they're all like, they're all over that stuff, which, on one hand, I'm like, oh, about how many kilowatt hours like this thing has it, and you're doing those calculations, and I like that part. But the idea of riding 50 miles per hour on the street is not something I want my 14-year-old doing. So, what's frustrating about this is, like, having a bike that can go that fast, I guess that's neat. But what you really want, I think, is a bike that can accelerate as fast as a car. So if you kind of, you torqued it down a little bit, like change the ratio on the gears inside there, you could have a bike that topped out at 40 miles per hour or 30 miles per hour, but got there really quick. So I kind of feel like that's kind of where we should be going and heading. Although, that said, one of my kids' friends uh, tried his bike and just, this is on the dirt, and he basically just decided to go, like that. And the bike just wheelied and ran away from him. So
Oh,
that's, like, you got to learn somehow. Like, I can tell you like, hey, don't do that. But when you're on your face, that's a better lesson to learn.
yeah. Or
So
when your tailbone tells you not to do that.
yeah, tailbone. I think I showed you some pictures of my first Talaria experience with my
Oh
elbows,
yeah.
and yeah. So we all learn our lessons in different ways. So yeah, I mean, this 83 miles per hour on that bike is just, that's kind of death waiting to happen. That's organ donor territory. I think, you know, that kind of battery, that kind of motor would be much better served with a higher acceleration rate, one that could like beat a car off the line or something. But really, if you're going to go that fast or even close to that fast, you probably should be looking for a motorcycle, right?
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is that these bikes, I mean, that's a department store mountain bike. Like it's just
Yeah,
it might handle, 35 miles an hour downhill for brief periods, but it's not meant to do that continuously all day sort of thing. A lot of people are like,
right,
oh, I can hit 40 miles an hour on my pedal bike. Yeah, but like not sustained, like not for
right.
hours on end, just when you're bombing down a hill. So you do
Yeah,
that
and they're
every day
also
on a
adding a
bike
lot of
that's
weight to
not meant.
that thing too.
Yeah, like that fork's not meant for it.
No,
If your freewheel's old and it locks up at 80 miles an hour, like the thing will just shatter your tibia when it comes around. Like there are a lot of
dude.
things that can go wrong. So like fast e-bikes are awesome. Like the engineer in me loves them. Where you use them is important. Like it's very much a location based thing. I love that they exist, but how and where you use it is the key there, I think. And this is probably not the place or the bike frame to do it on.
Right. And also, like, there is the thing in me that says, well, we don't put limiters on cars, which are way more dangerous, and we don't put them on motorcycles, but we do put them on bikes. So that's an interesting
Yeah.
uh, look there, I guess. All right, let's move on. New e-trike with 960-watt motor, full suspension, and 500-pound capacity.
Yeah, this one is from a company called Pucky Puppy, which I've only had a little bit of experience so far. The kind of neat thing, I guess, the shtick from this company is that all their bikes have dog names. So this is their new Rottweiler e-trike. And name aside, it actually looks pretty impressive from the spec sheet. They instead of going for like the super low cost, super affordable market on the trike in the trike market, they definitely amped up the bike a bit here. So we're talking more power, 750-watt nominal, but 960-watt peak. They've got a torque sensor, which is really nice. But the real sort of takeaway here, I think, is how comfortable this trike looks. It's got full suspension, including a pair of rear shocks. So it's like triple suspension, I guess. I guess also with a trike, it helps to spread those two shocks out a bit in the back there. Then it's got 20 by 4-inch tires. So you've got full suspension, wide, very large air volume tires. This thing is probably going to ride pretty nice. Now, I've not tested this one out. I do hope to be able to ride this one at some point because it looks pretty fun. But this is very much a bigger, heavier duty kind of trike. They say it's rated for up to 500 pounds of capacity, which is like, I can't fathom how I would put that much weight onto a trike. Like it doesn't even have a passenger seat. It does have a really big basket in the back, which is nice. A lot of trikes these days have these smaller sort of like token baskets. I'm amazed at how small the Electrek XP Trike 2's basket is, especially for such like a leader in the market. So great to see a very big basket there. Some other sort of like neat things about the trike. It's got a very large color screen, so they've put some real thought into this thing in terms of designing it correctly. If you're going to be building something bigger, if you're going to be building something nicer, give us more features, that sort of thing. It even has reverse, which very, very few trikes have. And it might sound silly, like why do you need reverse on a electric bicycle or even electric tricycle? But I've ridden trikes before that have them. It's usually the bigger trikes. And in very specific cases, it is incredibly useful. Usually, it's when you're trying to maneuver it in a tight space like a garage, or you need to push it backwards and you need to go up even just like a slight incline. Like if you're trying to like wiggle it around a driveway and the driveway is just like a little bit tilted, even a like 120 pound trike, it's very hard to push it up a hill. Certainly when you're on it and you're just kind of like trying to wiggle it on your toes. And so having a reverse feature is really cool. It's a little switch, and then it just turns the throttle into reverse throttle. So you twist the throttle just the same, and you can reverse the thing. So pretty neat. The downside here is that this thing costs a lot more than all of those super affordable, race to the bottom trikes. This one is $2,400, which is a lot for the trike market, especially when $1,000 less will get you one of the main competitors for the affordable entry level trikes. So I would say that this one is certainly for someone who values the extra features, certainly the comfort of a full suspension trike, and potentially the extremely high weight capacity. Because at 500 pounds, like either you're talking about a much larger rider or significant cargo hauling capacity, or even like something like this. I think it'd be cool to turn that rear basket into like a bench seat and carry a passenger. I don't think they offer a passenger kit, and they'll probably tell you like it's not rated for more than one person, but at least if it's rated for that much weight, then you might be able to get away with adding a bench there, maybe putting kids on the back. Always test it with kids first, kind of thing. They're flexible, they'll bounce back. So I think it's pretty cool to see this one enter the market. There are not very many full suspension trikes out there, and this one looks like a cool entry. Oh, I forgot the butterfly bar.
The butterfly bar?
Bars, they call them the butterfly bars. They're like fry level. So you just have like three different places you can put your hands. There's like the normal bars, and then there's a set below and above. So very very strange in my opinion, but kind of neat looking. And if you're someone who like accessibility is important, then maybe having a higher or lower reach and being able to move where your hands are will be kind of useful to you. For me, it's a little bit complicated, but it's something we rarely see. So it's just fun for me to see new things on e-bikes like that.
It
So
looks
a cool entry to the market.
it looks like the butterfly bar would also kind of protect the speedometer if you had it upside down or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you need to turn over to work on it. Because yeah, I hate having to like flip all the things, the
Yeah,
shifter and the speedometer and
or
everything. You
get like
forget
a
one, and then
super soft spongy pad under there or whatever.
yeah. So that
Um,
is nice that you could flip it if
and
you
this is
could
also
push
a
on it.
folder, so the folder is not really useful for most things, but we talked about it in a previous, I think last time, about how folders are so nice because it helps with shipping and there is that, storage and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at the basket there, and it looks like he's got everything he needs for a salad, plus the Hidden Valley Ranch. Like it's just like a salad basket right there. You got the whole salad bar in
Yeah, exactly. And a big salad too. Like it looks like he runs a salad bar or something.
there. Oh man, I love the little extra things that they
What
put
do we
in these.
got
I don't know
here?
if that's like AI or what, but yeah,
This
I
one,
love
there's a
the.
baguette showing. Good stuff.
You gotta have. It can't be a shop like a food shopping image without the baguette sticking out of the
Right.
basket. There, that's perfect.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we should talk a little bit about the trike ecosystem a little bit. Like I know Electrek and Rad and everybody's in there. This is a little bit more expensive than I think Electrek's entry. And I remember there's another inexpensive one recently. Besides full suspension, what else are we looking at? I mean, the bar, the accessibility. I think it has a little bit more power at 960
Yeah,
watts.
so it probably matches the higher power offering from Electrek, which is their the XP Trike 2750. I forget what the peak watts are on that, but I imagine it's probably in this neighborhood. And that one, I believe, is priced at $1,800,
Okay.
but it doesn't have as much suspension. I think the front suspension's less travel. Certainly doesn't have the dual rear shocks
Hmm.
like this one does. Um, Electrek does have the torque sensor, I believe, but this one has a few other advantages. Much bigger display, the reverse button, which again, like you probably won't use it that often, but when you need it, like it's just so nice. Oh man. So there are, those few things that kind of set this thing apart. Certainly the weight capacity, if it's accurate. Now I don't want to be like cynical, but especially when companies give those nice like perfect round numbers, like, oh, 500 pounds. Like, is that what the testing said, or that's the number that looks good in the marketing, right?
Right.
Like, so sometimes I question. There's also, it doesn't appear that there's any sort of standards testing organization or something that they're indicating is backing that number up. So assuming that it's accurate, then that's a huge weight rating. So that's great to see. But I think it's largely going to be the suspension and some of the other like nice programmed in features like the reverse, like the screen, that sort of thing that are the big differentiators, and those handlebars. But
Yeah, that screen
I
is
mean,
pretty nice. That's one of the better screens I've ever seen, I think.
yeah, like it's I mean it's large. It's, I think this is 4.5 or 5 inch TFT. So they've put some nice things into this. The bars again, like I don't think I would need 3 levels, but I just think it's so cool that that exists.
And it comes packaged pretty efficiently there. I see.
Yeah, there's probably some decent assembly. You've got a, I'm guessing that 5 minute assembly video is very
Yeah,
sped up.
right. All right, cool. It's good to have another trike. You know how I feel about riding trikes. It's like riding a bike with tricycles. You gotta kind of you're operating on one plane instead of having tipping and
Yeah.
stuff. So you definitely want to have a need for a trike to get a trike. All right, let's go move on. Raleigh. Oh, my favorite e-bike was a Raleigh. Launches new low-cost Bosch motor e-bikes. I think they were out of business for a while, weren't they? Raleigh? Maybe
Um,
not.
not that I
Maybe in the US.
remember. Perhaps. Yeah. So this is their the newest version of their sort of entry level Bosch powered bike. They had a Captus years ago, but this is the new, I guess, 2025 Captus, and it's a very affordable Bosch bike. I would say it's probably one of the most affordable e-bikes out there with a Bosch mid-drive motor system. It just launched at 1,900 pounds, which is about $2,400. I believe it's only first available in the UK. I don't think we have them in the US yet, but I'm sure Rally's going to expand that. But this is, despite being like a fairly entry level price, at least for a Bosch bike, which if you're in the know, you will know that Bosch bikes are generally much more expensive. Rarely do you see them start with a two figure. Usually it's 3,000, 4,000, or considerably more. So despite it being fairly entry level in terms of price, it's actually got decent components on it. Now they do use the most cost effective Bosch system. It's their active line, so it's like their lower torque. I think it's 40 Newton meters. It's efficient. It's reasonable, but it's not crazy powerful. They also have a slightly smaller battery. It's the 400 watt hour power pack, but they have decent parts on it. It's got the Shimano 9 speed Q's drivetrain, so it's not like it's not what's the Altus, it's not a Tourney, it's not an Alivio, so it's a better drivetrain there. They've got a suspension fork on one of the two models. The Captus comes in both a step through and a mid step. So interestingly, the step through has suspension, but the mid step does not, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. It seems like an interesting choice. I guess maybe they're considering that the step through is going to be the more like the leisurely one you choose, where you want like a nicer, sort of more casual, comfortable ride. And perhaps they consider the mid step to be like you're more of a commuter. You understand like there are bumps in the roads. To you, this is just like transportation from A to B, etc. So I'm not exactly sure why only one of the two frame styles comes with suspension, but it's nice to see that it is there on one of them. Let's see what else here. Obviously, this is going to be UL certified, meets all the European safety standards because it uses the Bosch system. It does have the more entry level Bosch Purion display, but again, that's fine. It's just kind of a simple black and white display. It doesn't give you anything too fancy, but gives you all the stuff that you that you really need. And then you get included racks, fenders, lighting, a lot of the stuff that some companies will hold behind an extra paywall. So that it's like, oh, you like the bike? It's, another $50 to get it with lights, or another $70 for the fenders. So again, like, it's an entry level bike in terms of Bosch, uh, like any bike with a Bosch system, but it's got fairly nice parts on it for something that you would see in this price range. Not as nice as Rally's top end bikes, but very good, I would say. This is not like they're not trying to compete with Rad Power or something. They're not trying to compete with Electrek. It's a much better bike than that. So I'm very excited to see Bosch bikes coming down in price like this. I mean, I guess we shouldn't really call them Bosch bikes. It's a Rally. It's just has Bosch like drive components on it. We've seen it a little bit. I know Gazelle earlier this year launched several e-bikes that were maybe a little bit more than this, but still, like in the 2000s range. Not $3,000 for a Bosch powered bike, but it's very rare to see them this low. So I'm very excited to see Bosch powered bikes coming into this price range, and especially that they have decent components on it. Not the best, but for someone who they really want the drive system to be the good part, the German made components, and then they're willing to go with like mid tier for everything else. Mid tier suspension, mid tier transmission, that sort of thing. This seems like what Rally's trying to do. And I could see a lot of people jumping at this just to be able to get that like name brand motor system that every bike shop's going to say like, oh yeah, that's a decent thing. I'll work on that sort of thing. So I'm excited about this. What do you think, Seth?
Definitely cool. I like the price point. I like the form factor. Any Bosch system that you can get at around $2,000, as you said, is going to be good. Thing about Raleigh, especially for our U.S. readers, is they actually did go out of business in the U.S. and you can't buy them in the U.S.
That's what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. It was like 2 years ago. I'm reading a press release right now. The Excel Group sold them to Kelly or KKR, and I think they spun out Raleigh to a couple investors in the UK, which I believe kind of just took the name. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly there's a great heritage there, and looks like a great bike, but I don't know if it's connected to the old Rally brand and all the other stuff. So still a cool bike. Anything Bosch at this price point is going to be good. And, they're selling them under the Rally brand in the UK, but this kind of looks like a Shopify site. And I was looking at Rally history. So they're definitely associated with the old Rally, but I don't know if it's the same. I mean, they're claiming that old history. So I guess it is the same company, but yeah, I think this particular one's only in Great Britain at the moment. So for better or worse.
Yeah, so not for us, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. Tern just launched an Airstream e-bike, and it looks kind of beautiful.
Yeah, this one's really fun. So, full disclosure, these bikes are not like new models. They're Airstream versions of two models of Tern's popular bikes. So they took their Vectron S10, which is their like lighter folding commuter bike, and their HSD, which is their sort of not as big as a GSD cargo bike, but still designed for cargo hauling. And they teamed up with Airstream, which is like the quintessential like classic American RV kind of camper company. And they made Airstream versions of their e-bikes because Terns have proven to be very popular with RVers. I mean, I think this is true of many folding bikes, but for someone who wants like a very high end folding bike that they can rely on as their vehicle that they keep in their RV and they use when they're parked and they don't want to tow their entire RV around, then Terns have been very popular for that. And so it's cool to see this like classic company team up with a very new e-bike company. I had a bit of a sort of like a joking AI image at the bottom that like, yeah, this is a great collaboration, but instead of seeing an Airstream by Tern, I'd love to see like a Tern Airstream by Airstream, so you could have a little like RV camper to pull behind your e-bike, which I think would be like the coolest thing to see this collaboration go the other way and get little mini bicycle RVs. But I love what Tern has done making the Airstream version of these bikes. They're already like super high end. You know, you get the belt drive, you get the Bosch motors, you get these frames that are built to handle so much more than most other folding e-bikes out there. I think they rate them at it's either 440, maybe more pounds, but these are like legit rated. Like they have all of the certification company documentation. These things are like actually designed to carry this much weight, as opposed to a lot of these sort of mystery certified heavy duty e-bikes. So like Tern knows how to build these things. Serious bicycle lineage behind the team that started and runs Tern. And to me, this is like a really cool collaboration just because it speaks to the penetration of e-bikes into so many other niches that we don't often consider. Like, you know, we often think of e-bikes as just transportation, but for a lot of people, they're secondary transportation, but in ways that we wouldn't imagine. Like for people who have campers or people who, you know, live on boats or people who have a small airplane, it's very common to get these very small, lightweight, high quality folding e-bikes, and that way you've got your extra set of wheels wherever you go, and that, you know, you can leave the marina, you can leave the RV park, you know, you can leave the airport, and you've got like a fully functional, reliable, lightweight, high-end electric bike. So to me, this is just like the perfect kind of secondary vehicle that you can carry in your first vehicle. And plus, I love that like silver Airstream look on these Terns. I think that's pretty slick. I don't think they've ever had a silver color like this before. At least correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, but I think this is definitely like a new colorway for them also. So it is neat to see on top of that this like really cool airway colored Tern here. Do you think it makes you want to get like an Airstream and go like ride the open road and have your Tern Airstream in there for riding around?
Yeah, I kind of always wanted an Airstream or have wanted one for a long time, and they're beautiful. And obviously, I am a big fan of Tern bikes, so the the two kind of make sense in a lot of ways. It's I kind of wish they had made you know a new bike or something, done something interesting besides the color and the whatever, but it's good. It's a good combo, I think, and maybe it's a harbinger for um, other collabs. Uh, you mentioned the Hummer thing, and I mean that's not a good collab, for instance. But I'm just wondering if it makes sense for kind of like off-road trucks and camping and adventure stuff to team up with e-bikes that can kind of operate like a dinghy to a boat. It like when you have an Airstream, you're kind of tied up. Your vehicle's kind of tied up as a connected to that. So having a e-bike makes a lot of sense. That does remind me though that we haven't heard from Rivian about their e-bike recently, but I feel like that is something that's coming around down the pike. Do we?
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of news from their new like micromobility division. They even
Yeah.
the last we heard from it, I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was some like cryptic, like maybe it'll be a bike, maybe it won't. So I'm almost wondering if they're moving more in like a moped or like that Lime glider where it's kind of like a noped because it's just got like
Oh, I've
platforms
never heard
instead of
that word before.
pedals.
Noped.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's sort of fallen out of favor in the last couple of years, but I think it arose from like moped
Right.
purists not liking when people call things mopeds that don't have pedals. So, but
Okay.
yeah, it's unclear what Rivian's even working on anymore. They haven't made any announcements in many months now.
All right, we're gonna have to go after that. I did have a chat with RJ, the CEO of Rivian, at the last event, and he did mention something about that. I recorded it, so I'll have to go back to that and see what he said.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a story there. All right, let's move on. Priority Skyline review, a 12-speed automatic shifting throttle e-bike for a song.
Yeah. So for a song is kind of relative here because this is that pinion bike. I think we actually talked about the
Mhm.
launch last podcast. And so now we've had a chance to review it. This is the 12 speed automatic electric shifting pinion. So the bike, it's priced at, I'm not sure if the promotion is still on or not. It was 36.99 with the promotion. It might be up to the 39.99 MSRP by now. But this is a gearbox instead of an internally geared hub or a derailleur. And this gearbox is generally found on very high end boutique European e bikes. We're talking like, $6,000 easy. So the fact that you can find it on like a 36.99 or 39.99 bike is incredible. But it's not just that like it's got that nice piece of kit there. This is also a bike. It comes from Priority, which they're like bike shop folks that do direct to consumer. So it's generally just going to be a much higher end bike, better performing components, a very powerful 750 watt hub motor, which I'm going to get back to the whole like hub motor choice here in a second. Large 48 volt, 15 amp hour battery. So, definitely gets you a lot of range there. Very nice hydraulic disc brakes. It's got suspension, which I ride a Priority Current as my like main sort of everyday e-bike, even if I don't necessarily ride every day. And the lack of suspension is the one thing that like I wish I could change about it. So great to see that on the Skyline here they went with the suspension. Very nice that they gave us that adjustable stem as well. I like to adjust those pretty high because I'm just more of an upright rider. It's more, relaxing, more comfortable to me. I don't like to be hunched over kind of thing. So I try to turn it into like as much of a Dutch bike as I can with that adjustable stem. Of course, you're seeing if you're watching the video with us, there's that Gates carbon drive there, which is like a hallmark of Priority. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think all of their bikes are Gates Drive because their whole thing is being a low maintenance bike company. And they're not even just an e-bike company. Like they got started with bikes, pedal bikes. We sometimes call them acoustic bikes, and then moved into e-bikes. So their whole thing is like belt drives, hydraulic brakes, anything that removes maintenance is what we want to do. And so with this bike, they took that even a step further with that automatic electric shifting. Now, Seth, you and I were talking last time, like, all right, well, is the shifting good, or is it those like annoying ones where it fights you? And I can tell you that it's actually really, really nice. I didn't know what to expect. In fact, I probably had low expectations just because I've had bad experiences on some of the earlier automatic shifting e-bikes from years past. But Pinion seems to have nailed it. I was able to dial it in really nice with the app, so it knew like exactly where I was comfortable with it shifting. Which, to be honest, like I'm still kind of debating whether I'm like a 55 or a 60 cadence. I keep flipping back and forth, but once I decide, it follows whatever I tell it to do, and then the shifting is really quick. It can shift under load. So like if you're doing the manual shifting from the little buttons on the handlebar, you can shift under load and it doesn't seem like it's, protesting very much. But if you let it do automatic shifting, it wants to wait until you let the pressure off the pedals. So what I do is I just pedal up, and as soon as I'm like, "Ooh, I'm pedaling too fast," I just let off the pedals for a split second. You might have seen it right there in the video. And as soon as I let off pedaling, I hear it go like zip, 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 and then it just shifts to whatever it knows is the right gear based on my speed, and I'm back in action. It even does that automatic shifting while I'm throttling, though I found that I don't use the throttle very much because the bike is just so nice to ride. It's got a torque sensor, it's got the automatic shifting, like it's just so nice to ride it like a bicycle. And you get the extra power from the motor. It is 750 watts, so I don't have a lot of hills here, but the few that I could find, like there's a path that goes up from the beach, so it's pretty steep, and the bike just like you know pulls you right up it. So very, very powerful, very torquey, but just a pleasure to pedal and ride it as if it's a normal, pedal bike. So the experience has just made me barely touch the throttle on this thing. And also, like, if you really want to take advantage of that 28 miles per hour, then you got to use pedal assist anyway because the throttle cuts out at 20. So, I definitely found myself probably 95% of the time using pedal assist on this thing, and it's just such a pleasure. It shifts right when you would expect it to. The shifts are, in the beginning, I thought it was a little bit loud, but I got used to like that little electronic noise when it's like zip, zip, zip each time it shifts, and it's less clunky than a derailleur that just like clunk, clunk, clunk.
Yeah, and I bet
So
it's nice to know that it's shifting. Like, you have that in your head so that you know that there's going to be a different type of torque on your feet.
exactly, yeah. And the thing is that there's no visual. Like it's not like, a Shimano shifter where you see the little orange dial move or something,
Hmm.
so you know what gear you're in. Here, you don't know just by looking at like a handlebar indicator what gear you're in. So, like hearing it shift does remind you like, okay, it just went up 2 gears kind of thing. So that is helpful. The other thing that I really liked about it was that you can set what the downshift, like the starting gear is how I should describe it. So like, out of the box, I think it was set at like 3 or something out of 12, which for me was just like crazy low. Like I live in a flat city, like I'll probably never need to touch gear 3. It's just way too low. It's also a 600% gear range. So when you think about it, like there's a there's a huge
Yeah.
difference between like gear 3 and gear 9, let alone 12. So I think I set mine at like 5 or 6, which is just plenty. I mean, generally I keep my e-bikes in near top gear anyway. So, I can set it to a number that just works great for my flat area. But if you're riding in San Francisco or somewhere with like crazy hills, you might want to set yours to just downshift for you, much lower. And that by itself, that feature is just like such a saver, because I can't tell you how many times I forget to downshift on other bikes, and like you go to start rolling, you just have to stand up on the pedals to even get rolling. So the fact that it just remembers to downshift for me every time I stop is will probably ruin me for other bikes, but it is a really nice feature to have. I mean, this must have been what it was like in the 70s when automatic transmissions in cars started becoming more popular. People are like, "Wow, I don't have to shift it anymore." So that's the experience I got from this thing. Though I feel like it was smarter than uh, a lot of car automatic transmissions. Plus the fact that you can override it and very easily just click the buttons and do your own electronic shifting means that if you aren't happy with the gear, you can very quickly fix it. But the one other downside I would point out, which I'm remembering now seeing the lane splitting video, is that the bars are quite wide. I wasn't expecting them to be this wide. And I'm very often riding between cars and traffic. It's just very common here. And so, to me, having bars that wide is a little bit of a liability if you are constantly between cars in like your lane splitting and filtering. Every time else it was just fine, and it does give you more control of the bike. They're almost wide like mountain bike handlebars. So, that's something to keep in mind if you're like a very very urban rider, in the sense that like you're between cars urban. But other than that, like there's just very little else I could complain about it. It's kind of heavy, 68 pounds, certainly not light. I think it's got like 10 pounds or more on my priority current. So, that's a little bit of a bummer if you have to carry it upstairs. But otherwise, just like really, really nicely put together. Great fenders, great rack, very, very bright headlight. Actually, oh, I felt so bad. I accidentally made another cyclist crash last night while I was riding it, because I was coming down a street and he cut across like a crosswalk on the street. It was his fault. Like, he should have looked, but he saw me coming at the last minute. And I think he saw my headlights. It was at night and it was very bright. So he probably assumed I was a car or something. And he just slammed on the brakes, too much front brake, and he went down. Fortunately, he was all
Uh,
right. He was wearing a helmet.
are you sure he wasn't looking at your great rack?
He might have been looking at my rack. That's certainly a possibility.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm very
but
sorry.
yeah, like the headlight is quite bright, and he probably thought that oh crap, there's like a car bearing down on me. Fortunately, he was okay. But yeah, like very very few things I can complain about there. Just the bike rode so nicely, and the fact that you can get a pinion for that price is wild. Oh, the one thing I didn't talk about, and this is something a lot of people brought up, is like, why have a hub motor on such a nice bike? And so like I get the question, but I think it's a misconception that like hub motor means cheap, or like hub motor means less good. And I would say that like, yeah, you do often see mid-drive motors on more expensive bikes, but it's not because one is necessarily like the right option. In many cases, there are different advantages and disadvantages, and there's no correct option. And I think hub motors versus mid drives are one of those cases. In this case, the fact that it only costs $36.99 with all these components, part of that is because you can use a less expensive hub motor. There is a pinion drive that has the built-in motor in it, so you get the gearbox and you get a mid-drive motor, and it is like wicked expensive. Right now, it's really only on European mountain bikes, and that's where it makes a lot more sense. For a commuter bike like this, I think it would be kind of overkill, and I'm not sure what it would cost to put on a bike like this, but it would definitely jack the price up. So for me, it's a smart decision. It is a nice motor. I'm not sure who makes it, but I actually I got a flat tire and I had to bring it into a bike shop to help me break the bead because my tire levers were not enough to get the tire off the rim. And when I brought it in, they were like, "Whoa, this bike isn't from around here, is it?" Because they saw the motor and it was like a very nice hub motor. So you get the power, 750 watts, like very powerful, and it is a very nice motor. So for the people who are like, "Oh, why's it got a hub motor?" I don't think that's the right way to look at it because it's a high quality motor and it works great. It's just not the mid drive that a lot of people think any bike that starts with a number three should have. That's sort of my opinion on that. But I know you haven't ridden it, Seth. What do you think from seeing it at least?
I like where priority is. Like, I just feel like their decision making, what their trade-offs are. Like, I just love what they do. And it feels like every bike that comes out of that company is like pushing, like they make the right trade-offs, they push the price down, they allow people with lower budgets to get into bikes that have kind of next gen technology. You get to move up top shelf from without top shelf prices. So this is obviously no exception. Love to see it. I still don't like. I will need to be on a smart shift bike, e-bike, before I can give it the thumbs up. Because while I trust your uh, probably more than anybody else in the world, like I don't know, like if your pedaling torque is similar to my pedaling torque and all the other stuff.
Yeah,
So
it's such a
um,
personal kind of thing. So yeah, you got
yeah,
to feel it. Yeah.
but yeah, I think this is great for the industry, and I'm glad to see Priority still doing what they do. All right, let's move on.
Yep.
Can-Am unveils new electric ATV that tows more than any gas model.
Yeah, this is exciting. I love seeing new electric off-road vehicles like this. Not like big Rivian trucks, but like smaller things for specific jobs like this. So ATVs, UTVs, the like farm bikes, anything like that is just super exciting for me. And Can-Am has been really working at expanding their lineup to include some of their other brands, their jet skis, their ATVs, that sort of thing. So this is the new 2026 Can-Am Outlander electric ATV. The cool thing about this is that, like, yeah, not only is it an electric ATV, so you get the quiet operation, you get the recharging it at home, so you don't need to keep gas cans around. You don't have like the issue of storing flammable chemicals in your barn, that sort of thing. But really, it's the power and performance, and this is where for these types of off-road electric vehicles, these things really shine. As long as you don't need to be doing 100 miles a day, you just get such a performance benefit when you trade to electric. In this case, it's not even like insanely powerful, right? So it's 35 kilowatts, which is it's powerful. It's almost 50 horsepower, but the the actual like real world performance that power gives you with the extra torque means that this thing has just crazy towing capacity. So this one is rated at 1,800 pounds of towing, which is more than any other gas ATV I could find. Now there are a lot more powerful gasoline ATVs out there. They're 80 horsepower, 100 horsepower. Like this is not the highest power, but it's the highest towing. And so anyone who's actually pulling stuff with this, pulling trailers, moving like a trailer around your yard, horse trailers, whatever.
Herding
Like I
sheep.
don't use herding sheep. Yeah, like I have an electric UTV and I use it to like move our trailers around in the pasture because it's just a lot easier than bringing a full vehicle out there. And so like that towing capacity tells the story that electric just performs better. But then you get to all those like the nice ownership benefits, like the herding the sheep picture. Like, great marketing, but honestly, it's so quiet. Like my parents have cows, and our UTV doesn't bother them at all. Like it's just like you don't hear it. The thing you hear is the suspension creaking. Like that's what you hear, things that you wouldn't normally hear on a gasoline ATV or UTV. So to me, that's the biggest benefit, is that in addition to having the higher performance, you just get all of the like life quality upgrades, so to speak. It's quiet. It's not causing emissions. You're not smelling exhaust when you're using it, because ATVs don't have the nice catalytic converters or the other things that you're going to find on modern vehicles. So you're not surrounded by that exhaust. It's not creating a bunch of heat under you. When you operate gasoline powered ATV in the summer, those things definitely heat up. So there's so many advantages here. Now the downside is going to be the range. Obviously, with a gasoline UTV, not only do they have fairly good range, but it's very easy to just carry a red gas can on there and fill it up when you need, or return to the barn, fill it up, that sort of thing. In this one, it does have level 2 charging, so in less than an hour, you can get your 20 to 80% charge, which is sort of like the real world. No one's going to bring it back empty. No one's going to wait till it hits 100. So, I'd say 50 minutes, an hour. That's still fairly reasonable. We're not yet at the level of a 1 minute red gas can fill up. But if that's the trade off, then I think for 95% of people that actually use an ATV for real work, that's enough, because I don't know anybody that needs to do like 100 miles a day. Like, we're not touring on these things. Like if this thing can do 50 miles a day, that's plenty for most people. Like that's, most people are using this around their dozen acres of property, their couple dozen. They're not like, on a 1,000 acre ranch with these things. And if they are, then they're probably a big enough operation that they could just have a couple, or have like a level 2 station in a couple places with a solar setup. And so, like I said, I think 95% of people are going to be happy with a 50-mile range on a charge. And if you really need more than that, then you can wait 50 minutes to top your battery back up. So to me, this is just super, super exciting. Now the last downside is going to be the price, right? Like we're not at price parity for these off-road electric vehicles yet. It is 12,999. I did leave a 9 off initially. Someone caught that, so it was not $1,299. Sorry to the first few
Whoops.
people that saw that. Yeah, I bet Can-Am had a huge rush on their site, and they're like, "Where's all this
They're like,
traffic coming from?" So $13,000. It's a lot for an ATV. It's actually what my UTV cost, and I can fit 3 people and carry a lot more with it. So, not cheap, but at least Can-Am, has a pretty storied history. The company is probably going to be there. They're using components that they share across several vehicles. It's the same battery that's in their motorcycles, for example. So, they're getting a lot of miles on these parts to sort of like truth test them in the wild. And so there are some advantages with going with a big company like this, but it's probably going to price out some of the folks who are really just looking to spend, $5,000-6,000 and get like a basic ATV to use around their horse ranch. I do think that eventually we're going to reach price parity. It's only a matter of time. Battery prices continue to come down as these things become more common. The production volume goes up. Economies of scale come into play. So we'll get there. But for now, you still got to pay to play if you want to go electric, at least on these more niche products like these ATVs, UTVs, farm bikes, that sort of thing. But I bet this thing is just super fun. I feel like we could have some fun ripping around on these.
yeah, we need to get a review going ASAP. This isn't the same. We've seen some other ATVs, UTVs. I think what's that company that went under? I think initially there's been a few companies. Obviously, Fred works with Taiga up in Canada as well, and they have some pretty good UTV options, but nothing as big as Can-Am. Obviously, we'd love to see the Honda, Kawasaki, Yamahas of the world jump in there with some electric offerings. Polaris obviously has a few electric things that kind of compete in this world. But Can-Am pretty good. Although we did get a tip, I don't know if you saw it, that some of the Can-Am dealers in the Midwest were saying that they weren't going to carry the electric versions, or they haven't really got into
Haven't
that
bought
as well.
into it. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
yeah, I'll have to bring that up. Also, I also like to see Rotax, a company that's kind of famous for building motors for light airplanes, uh, getting into the e-power drivetrain stuff. That's also good for. I think Rotax does a lot of CDUs motors, gas motors as well. So that's going to be a good thing for the industry, airplanes, ATVs, boats, all good stuff.
Yeah, and they're owned by Can-Am's owner as well, I think, BRP, right?
Okay.
Bombardier. I think they own
Oh yeah,
Rotax, if I'm not
Bombardier.
mistaken.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they of course make those huge jets, not huge, but small jets that carry, I don't know, like what, 100 passengers, something like that. So good to see, and nice to see a Canadian company doing well. Hopefully, they're not getting the complexity of the tariffs in the U.S. Hopefully, that's not a too big a hurdle for them.
Yeah, there's a lot of land in Canada. I'm sure they've got a lot of customers to satisfy them up there as well.
Yeah, and of course, they're going to work in the winter, so good to
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Let's shift gears. We'll jump into the comments. Joseph, when we were talking about tariffs, says, I know the accounting departments must be infuriated and stressed. Yeah, I mean, certainly just, especially, it wouldn't be so bad if it was just like, all right, we're going to make 15% globally. That's it. Can't change for a year, 2 year, for four
Yeah,
years, basically. Do that. But this, negotiations and moving back and forth, it's got to be super rough.
yeah, it's the instability that's killer.
Right. Michael Sprinzelis, Reese Mueller were already expensive before the tariffs. That said, the best e-bike I've ever tried was a Delight. Is that a brand or a?
That's one of the recent Mueller models, I believe.
Okay. Um, Also, I agree. One of the best bikes I've ever ridden was a Reese Mueller, but it was $8,000, so didn't keep it. Why do I feel accused when you talk about overpowered DIY e-bikes? I feel I have mixed feelings about that as well, Michael.
Yeah, anytime I'm against them, it's just like time and a place, right? Yeah,
Right, and you got to. I mean, people have to do a little bit of self-regulation, right? Like, you, if your bike goes 83 miles per hour, do not take it on public roads. And I guess, I mean, you could take it on public roads, but just keep it, 20 miles per hour. Not that, I don't know. I say this, but then I think to myself, would I do that? I would keep it
so
under 50 for sure. I would keep it under 40, probably. Maybe. All right, Michael Spinzellis again. Not sure you're right about the extra torque without speed. I see a lot of noobs turning their bikes over to land on top of them. That's right.
yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, that that's a risk of that high torque.
Uh, Extra places to install Farkles with those bars. That's the trike. What are Farkles?
So I think Farkles, it's like all those various add-ons that people put on their bars, like a GPS unit and a this and a that, and like they get their bars covered with just like a ton of different accessories and attachments and this and that. So and usually like bicycle handlebars don't have a ton of real estate for that stuff, so you have like add-on bars that give you like more places to clamp stuff, and so those like butterfly tri-level trike bars could just be covered in all sorts of, you got your GPS, you got your like duck horn, you got your crazy off-road lights, you got like everything you can mount on there.
Airstreams are cool, but no thanks. The Tern, on the other hand, yes, please. All right, why no thanks on the Airstream? I wonder. I mean, they've got some
What about the
cool.
bike Airstream though? That would have been right.
Yeah, that
Yes,
AI
please.
at the bottom. It might have been hard to accelerate up a hill, maybe. Like the Dutch style because it's easier to turn and see traffic over your shoulder. I think we're talking about the priority there, maybe.
Yeah.
And priority is where again?
They're based in New York.
Okay.
They're one oh it's part of their
The
brand.
city?
172 Hudson, I think. Yeah, New York City. I think it's 172 or 174 Hudson.
Oh, if
Start
they
on
have
Hudson
it,
Street and
if
you'll
they
yeah.
if they want to invite me over, I'm up for lunch.
Yeah, go over there. Yeah,
All
go
right.
visit Dave. He's awesome.
Okay. Shifting before a stop is second nature, but to me, but I wouldn't mind forgetting that downshift feature is sweet. We're talking about the auto shifting. That's pretty cool. Mario Madness says a lot of bikes have electric shifting now. My only con, what if you forget to put in batteries? Yeah, so what happens if the battery dies?
Yeah, so that's an excellent point. Actually, I went to just move the bike like a little bit while I had it turned off, and I wanted to downshift it, and it didn't. And that's when I realized, like, oh yeah, like the bike needs to be on for the shifter to work. And so if your battery's dead, it's a single speed. So that is
Oh,
one
interesting.
interesting little issue there.
I wonder how much battery, like, I wonder if the bike could, like, save some battery at the end for shifting.
Yeah, it can't be that much because like normal pedal bikes that have electric shifting just have a small battery somewhere. Like, and you charge
Right.
it up, it lasts a while. So like, you shouldn't need to save that much battery.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, I wonder if there's a setting you could say, hey, save a little at the end so I can make it home.
Yeah,
If you have steep hills locally and want a street legal moto, you need a mid drive. That's mm, not really. I mean, there is a lot of torque in mid drives, and it does take advantage of the shifting gears, but I don't know if
I guess it
that's
depends on your definition of
universal.
steep. Because yeah, like if again, like if you're talking like San Francisco hills, like yeah, like a hub motor is gonna get bogged down. So I guess it depends on how steep we're talking here.
That's one good thing about electric, lots of torque, and an electric ATV. I think we've underestimated the amount of enthusiasm people have for electric ATVs. You know, those
Yeah,
are
I can't wait to see how they sell because like you brought up Polaris. Polaris had an awesome, or they still have an awesome electric UTV, but it's $35,000. Like
right.
it's crazy. So like who's buying it? You know, it's a fleet vehicle. But for this, more actual consumers can buy a $13,000 electric ATV.
In my opinion, if you have property big enough to test the range of an eATV, you don't have to worry about gas prices. That's not entirely true. There's plenty of farmers out there that probably aren't making a ton of money, and yeah. I'm a bit late to the show, but isn't the Greenworks mini bike kind of halfway there to an affordable ATV? A trailer and racks could easily help on a farm like scenario. In the meantime, is the
Yeah, it's probably like a
Greenworks mini bike
farm
is a
bike.
two wheeler though, right?
Yeah, I think it's a two. Like I would kind of classify that as like a farm bike. I mean, basically farm bikes are kind of two-wheeled ATVs, right? So yeah, it's in that class of you'd use it for similar things, maybe not towing.
Doesn't
I tried towing.
Volta have one of those too? Am I thinking of
Volta.
the Texas company that's got that big fat wheeled bike?
Oh, yeah. Shoot, what's their name?
Vulcan?
Vulcan. Vulcan. Yeah, Vulcan. They
Are you out
have.
of your
Yeah.
Vulcan mind? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. They also have.
Oh, he's got the address. All right,
Yeah. One super. Yeah.
we'll go meet there. Ouch, what gear does the electronic shifter leave you in without power? Does it leave you in a default gear or is it
Yeah. It's whatever you. Well,
last
unless
one?
I think unless it literally died while you were in motion, and then it would have been whatever you were actively at. So probably a pretty high gear if you were going fast. But as long as it's you're stopped when you turn it off or it dies or whatever, then it'll default to whatever your downshift selection was. So like for me, it was probably like 5 or 6, but because I was getting rolling and I didn't have any electric assist, that was suddenly a bit high for me to be pedaling with no power.
And the last comment, I live in a San Francisco type hill. I would just say, like, I don't know if I would be so into e-bikes if I lived in like Florida like you do. Like, I mean, I do like e-bikes, but I also enjoy acoustic bikes. But like, I live on the bottom of a huge hill that stands between me and the town that I live in, and it's a pain in the ass to get up and over. So e-bikes just make my life a lot easier. Um, I probably save like probably a half hour getting to town just because I would be crawling up the hill. So yeah, e-bikes for people in hilly areas is definitely a demographic that needs served.
And I just like going fast.
Yeah.
I don't have any hills, but I want to go fast.
Yeah, and I'm not going to ramble on too much about it, but like, it's hard. Like nobody really understands how bad the wind resistance is of sitting up on a bike. Like, the obviously recumbent bikes make that a little bit better, but like, I feel like a motorcycle didn't somebody test like a motorcycle driver and a Prius actually got better wind resistance than the motorcycle rider at high speeds,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
I mean, two wheelers are notoriously. I mean, that's why those lycra cyclists cycle in like a fetal position, right? Because
Right.
like that was what makes them more aerodynamic. So yeah, like especially when you get going above 20, 25, you're just like catching all that wind.
Yeah, we need to figure that out too. Like somehow make bikes a little bit more aerodynamic, especially for the higher speed ones. But
Velomobiles.
yep, velomobiles. We need to get one of those, an electric
Yeah,
velomobile.
yeah. Add another digit to the normal
Yeah,
e-bike price, and there you go.
there you go. All right, that's it for
All right.
comments.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in. This has been another fun episode, and we will be back in another 2 weeks for the next episode of the Wheelie Podcast. We'll see you next time, everyone.